Citizens in this area remain concerned about crime, especially violent crime.
Texas is under siege. New warnings are flooding the governor's office as migrant crime reports surge across the state, triggering fear in communities already under strain. From border towns to major cities, law enforcement is sounding alarms about rising violence, smuggling, and repeat offenders slipping through the cracks. As public anxiety grows and pressure mounts, Governor Greg Abbott now faces a critical moment. Act decisively or risk losing control of a crisis that's rapidly spreading. Migrant crime statistics that shocked Texas.
Violent crime rates are trending up in Austin. Department of Justice officials have attributed it to city policies, including defunding police. But crime has also gone up in large Texas cities that have not defunded police.
The numbers are staggering, and they are impossible to ignore. According to data compiled by the Texas Department of Public Safety from June 2011 through November 2025, approximately 345,000 identified illegal non-citizens have been booked into Texas jails and prisons. During that period, these individuals were associated with more than 603,000 criminal charges and over 227,000 convictions. These are not minor infractions. The charges include 1,107 homicide charges, 77,448 assault charges, 7,586 sexual assault charges, and 69,261 drug-related offenses. Let those numbers sink in for a moment. Behind every number is a real victim, a grieving family, and a community forever changed. More than 1,000 homicide charges mean lives ended violently. Thousands of sexual assault charges mean victims who will carry trauma for the rest of their lives. For many Texans, these statistics confirm what they already feel in their daily lives: a growing sense of fear, instability, and loss of trust in the systems meant to protect them. The situation has grown more severe in recent years. Since 2021, border encounters nationwide have exceeded 10.8 million, an unprecedented surge that has placed Texas on the front line of a national crisis. As the largest border state, Texas has absorbed a disproportionate share of this influx, straining law enforcement, social services, and local governments. The Department of Homeland Security has reported a 690% increase in attacks on ICE agents in 2025 alone, underscoring how dangerous enforcement operations have become. Officers are no longer just processing migrants. They are confronting organized resistance, violent offenders, and criminal networks that exploit chaos. National security concerns further complicate the crisis. Since 2021, more than 390 individuals on the terrorist watch list have been encountered at the southern border. While not all were admitted into the country, their presence has fueled fears that the border is vulnerable to exploitation by actors with far more dangerous intentions than economic migration. For critics of current immigration policy, this raises uncomfortable questions about vetting, enforcement capacity, and long-term risk. One of the most alarming developments has been the rise of transnational criminal organizations operating inside Texas. Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua has emerged as a particularly dangerous force. Authorities describe the group as highly organized, violent, and adaptive. Originally formed in Venezuela's prison system, the gang has expanded across Latin America and into the United States, exploiting migrant routes to establish footholds in major cities. In Texas, Tren de Aragua has been linked to human trafficking, extortion, armed robberies, and violent assaults. Law enforcement officials warn that this is not street-level crime, but a coordinated criminal enterprise that thrives in unregulated environments and overwhelmed systems. Violent crime tied to the broader migration crisis is not confined to border towns. Major metropolitan areas across Texas have seen disturbing increases. Austin, long viewed as one of the state's safer large cities, experienced a sharp rise in homicides beginning in 2020. As Dr. Michael Sierra Arvelo, a violence prevention expert at the University of Texas, explained during a televised discussion, Austin saw approximately a 55% year-over-year increase in homicide between 2019 and 2020. While he cautioned that homicide remains statistically rare, the trend itself reflects a broader national and statewide pattern that cannot be dismissed.
I think that it's important to recognize that first, there has been an increase. There is approximately a 55% year-over-year increase from 2019 to 2020. Now that number sounds really scary, but we also have to remember that homicide in Austin in particular is a relatively rare phenomenon.
Austin is not an outlier. Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and other major cities have all reported similar increases in violent crime over the past several years. Law enforcement agencies cite a combination of factors: population growth, strained resources, repeat offenders cycling through the system, and criminal networks exploiting overwhelmed border and asylum processes. For residents, the result is a growing sense that public safety is deteriorating faster than leaders are willing to admit. At the border itself, conditions have reached crisis levels. El Paso declared a state of emergency as shelters overflowed and migrants flooded city streets. The mayor acknowledged that the city was no longer able to safely care for the hundreds of asylum seekers sleeping outdoors. The images were stark: families huddled on sidewalks, children wrapped in thin blankets, and makeshift camps forming in public spaces. These scenes exposed the humanitarian cost of a system stretched beyond capacity.
A state of emergency at the Texas border. The mayor of El Paso making the declaration late Saturday.
Our asylum seekers are not safe, as we have hundreds and hundreds on the streets, and that's not the way we want to treat people.
The human suffering is undeniable. Men, women, and children fleeing violence, poverty, and political instability are arriving with nowhere to go. Babies sleeping on cold pavement. Families waiting for days without food, shelter, or medical care. At the same time, officials warn that criminal elements are exploiting the chaos, blending into migrant flows to evade detection. This dual reality, humanitarian tragedy alongside criminal exploitation, has made policy decisions extraordinarily complex and deeply divisive.
It's freezing temperatures overnight. We have children and babies who were sleeping in streets.
Colony Ridge, a massive settlement northeast of Houston, has become one of the most controversial symbols of this crisis. Home to tens of thousands of residents, the development has drawn intense scrutiny from state officials, journalists, and law enforcement. Critics describe it as a magnet for undocumented migrants and a potential hub for criminal activity, citing reports of drug trafficking, human smuggling, and gang presence. While not every resident is involved in crime, the scale and rapid growth of Colony Ridge have raised serious questions about oversight, infrastructure, and enforcement. Texas-specific data paints a troubling picture. The state hosts an estimated 2 to 7 million illegal immigrants, making it second only to California. This massive population has been tied to elevated levels of human trafficking, child sex trafficking, and cartel influence. Some analyses suggest Texas has become the U.S. state with the highest jihadist activity and the second largest population of Middle Eastern migrants, raising additional national security concerns. The June 2022 San Antonio trailer tragedy, where 53 migrants died in a sweltering truck, stands as the deadliest smuggling event in U.S. history. The smugglers responsible weren't sentenced until 2025, highlighting the slow pace of justice in these cases. This horrific incident underscored both the humanitarian cost and the criminal enterprise driving illegal immigration. In June 2024, the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray in Houston by Venezuelan migrants shocked the nation and put a human face on the migrant crime crisis. Cases like Jocelyn's have galvanized public opinion and intensified demands for action from state leadership. The impact extends beyond Texas's borders. Immigration policy is hitting Texas harder than almost any other state, with ripple effects throughout the region.
A new report shows Texas is feeling the impact of immigration policy more than almost any other state. The Migration Policy Institute says about 2 million immigrants in Texas are living here without legal status, second only to California.
With repeat offenders cycling through the system and violent crimes mounting, Texans are demanding answers. And increasingly, those demands are being directed at one man, Governor Greg Abbott. Warnings and criticisms aimed at Governor Abbott. Governor Greg Abbott has positioned himself as a border hawk, projecting an image of toughness through high-profile initiatives and media appearances. But a growing chorus of critics from both his political opponents and his own base are warning that his actions may be more style than substance. The warnings directed at Abbott have become increasingly pointed, accusing him of faking a hardline stance while enabling the very crisis he claims to be fighting. The criticism from conservatives has been particularly scathing. Some have awarded Abbott satirical labels like the Sinaloa Cartel Lifetime Achievement Award winner, accusing him of using taxpayer funds to bus over 600,000 illegal immigrants deeper into the U.S. rather than actually securing the border. Critics allege that the addresses used for these busing operations were reportedly provided by cartels themselves, essentially making Texas a distribution hub rather than a barrier. The accusations don't stop there. Abbott has faced allegations of accepting millions in donations from entities linked to developments like Colony Ridge, the very settlement housing tens of thousands of potentially undocumented residents that has drawn law enforcement scrutiny. Critics argue this creates a troubling conflict of interest, with the governor profiting politically while the border remains effectively open. Prominent conservative voices, including Tucker Carlson, have highlighted what they characterize as Abbott's failures. The argument goes that despite 10 years in office and billions spent on border initiatives, the fundamental problem has only gotten worse. The razor wire, floating barriers, and recent fence installations are dismissed by detractors as stunts that cartels easily bypass. From the other side, Abbott faces criticism for policies deemed too harsh. His signing of Senate Bill 4, one of the harshest state immigration laws in modern U.S. history, drew immediate backlash.
This comes after the state's Republican governor just signed one of the harshest state immigration laws in modern U.S. history.
The law allows local police to arrest migrants who cross the border illegally and gives local judges authority to order deportations. Abbott defended the measure as necessary.
The goal of Senate Bill 4 is to stop the tidal wave of illegal entry into Texas.
But it has faced legal challenges, remaining blocked by courts as of July 2025. This has forced Texas to rely on alternative charges like trespassing to arrest migrants, a workaround that critics say demonstrates the law's fundamental constitutional problems. The situation in Harris County, home to Houston, has drawn particular attention. Investigative reports found that since 2020, nearly 49,000 individuals were charged with more than one felony, meaning 38% of the nearly 130,000 people facing felonies had multiple serious charges filed against them. Of those 49,000 repeat offenders, 80% posted bonds at least once. This revolving door justice system has become a major political liability for Abbott, who has championed bond reform but seen limited results. When Abbott launched a violent crimes task force in Houston targeting repeat offenders, the conspicuous absence of Houston's mayor and police chief sent a clear message about local cooperation, or lack thereof.
Governor Greg Abbott was in Houston today. His focus, crime. The governor acknowledged that crime is down in our city, but said Houstonians are still concerned about safety. So he introduced a new violent crimes task force targeting repeat offenders.
The tension between state and local authorities was palpable. HPD refused to answer questions, directing all inquiries to Abbott's office. The mayor's office didn't respond at all. This fractured response undermines the unified front needed to address violent crime effectively. Democratic critics, including El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, have argued that the crisis requires a fundamentally different approach. They contend that treating immigration as purely a border enforcement issue misses the bigger picture.
Unfortunately, Congress has failed to act on changing our very outdated immigration laws for decades. The federal government, under Congress's direction, has addressed immigration as a border-only issue. We really have to kind of zoom out and recognize this is a Western Hemispheric refugee crisis of historic proportions.
Abbott has also faced scrutiny over health concerns related to the migrant surge. As Title 42, the Trump-era public health rule making it easier to return migrants, faced expiration, Abbott warned of potential chaos and health risks. Perhaps most damaging is the criticism from within Abbott's own political base. Texas State Representative Brian Harrison demanded in November 2025 that Abbott stop the DMV from registering vehicles to undocumented immigrants, highlighting policy gaps that seem to contradict the governor's tough-on-immigration rhetoric. Critics accuse Abbott of being all hat and no cattle, projecting toughness while leaving fundamental problems unaddressed. The warnings directed at Abbott essentially boil down to this. After 10 years in office, billions spent, and countless press conferences, the border remains insecure, migrant crime continues to spike, and Texas communities are paying the price. Whether Abbott can address these criticisms while maintaining his political coalition remains to be seen.
We're here to expose the truth to immigrants who are thinking about coming here, the truth about the traffickers who assault so many of the women and children along the way. We are launching a new campaign to deter illegal immigration into Texas.
Abbott's response and the path forward. Despite the mounting criticism, Governor Abbott has responded with an aggressive slate of initiatives aimed at demonstrating action on the border crisis. His administration has rolled out a comprehensive strategy combining state law enforcement, legislative action, and federal cooperation, particularly since the second Trump administration took office in January 2025. Operation Lone Star, launched in March 2021, remains the centerpiece of Abbott's border strategy. This multi-billion-dollar initiative deploys Texas National Guard and DPS troopers to secure the border, apprehend migrants involved in crimes, and disrupt cartel operations. By mid-2025, the operation had resulted in over 500,000 migrant apprehensions, 45,000 criminal arrests, including for smuggling and assault, and seizures of 488 million fentanyl doses. Abbott has expanded the operation significantly in 2025, deploying up to 5,000 National Guard troops to high-risk areas. The state has allocated over $11 billion to border security since 2021, representing one of the largest state-level investments in border enforcement in American history. On January 29, 2025, Abbott issued 5 executive orders directing state agencies to assist federal immigration enforcement. These orders mandate investigating, arresting, jailing, and deporting illegal immigrants, with a focus on those with criminal records. State resources must cooperate with IC, prioritizing violent offenders and gang members. The collaboration with the Trump administration has produced tangible results. In February 2025, Trump deputized Texas National Guard for immigration arrests, leading to over 3,100 arrests statewide, a 35% increase from 2024. These arrests included 6,500 individuals with felony warrants. Operation Lone Star expanded to interior cities like Austin and Houston, arresting migrants under state charges like trespassing. The Texas Repeat Offender Program, announced on October 1, 2025, represents Abbott's latest initiative to address violent crime. This multi-agency task force combines state troopers from DPS with local law enforcement to apprehend and prosecute repeat violent criminals.
Citizens in this area remain concerned about crime, especially violent crime. And very simply, there are far too many victims of violent crime in Harris County.
Abbott has vowed to expand the program statewide. As he stated when announcing the initiative, "We are coming for you to dangerous offenders." The program specifically targets high-risk individuals responsible for disproportionate crime rates. Targeted raids in high-risk areas have also intensified. In February 2025, federal and state forces targeted Colony Ridge, arresting hundreds with prior criminal records including murder and sexual assault. IC arrests have surged to an average of 727 daily in Texas, representing 1/4 of all IC arrests nationwide. Legislative action has complemented enforcement efforts. In July 2025, Abbott signed SB 8 and SB 36 to enhance federal coordination on border security, including tougher penalties for smuggling and trafficking. New laws effective. September 1, 2025, strengthen penalties for violent crimes, improve public safety, and support law enforcement with enhanced sentencing for felonies. Abbott has also launched a $100,000 billboard campaign in Central America and Mexico, warning migrants of the dangers of illegal crossings, kidnapping, rape, and death. While critics dismiss this as insufficient or propagandistic, supporters argue it represents a pragmatic deterrent approach. The results have been dramatic in some respects. Border crossings have plummeted to historic lows, down 84% from 2024 to around 238,000 apprehensions from January to September 2025. Shelters in border towns like Eagle Pass and El Paso have emptied, creating quiet streets after years of chaos. Abbott has credited the Trump administration's policies while taking credit for Texas's role. "We've never seen such a massive drop in illegal immigration ever," he stated in May 2025. The partnership has allowed Texas to close facilities like the Jim Hogg County border site that were overwhelmed during the surge years. However, the aggressive approach has not come without costs. The crackdowns and deportations have hit businesses hard, with many reporting difficulty hiring and keeping foreign-born workers. Economic analyses project that mass deportations could shrink Texas's GDP by 10%, raise prices by 9.1% by 2028, and cause significant income loss in mixed-status households. The agricultural sector, where 40% of workers are undocumented, faces particular vulnerability. Construction, an industry that fills 40% of positions with immigrant labor, is already experiencing shortages. The human cost is equally significant. Family separations from deportations affect 4.4 million U.S.-born children nationwide, leading to anxiety, withdrawal, and avoidance of services. In Texas, this erosion of trust in institutions may actually harm public safety by discouraging crime reporting in immigrant communities. The debate over migrant crime itself remains contested. Research consistently shows that immigrants, including undocumented ones, commit crimes at significantly lower rates than native-born U.S. citizens. Between 2012 and 2018, undocumented immigrants had a violent crime arrest rate of 96.2 per 100,000, compared to 2 and 13 for U.S.-born citizens. The homicide arrest rate was 1.9 per 100,000 for undocumented immigrants versus 4.8 for natives. Abbott's defenders argue that regardless of comparative crime rates, every crime committed by someone who shouldn't be in the country represents a preventable tragedy. The over 1,100 homicide charges against illegal non-citizens in Texas since 2011 represent over 1,100 victims whose deaths could have been prevented with better border security. Looking ahead, Abbott has signaled continued aggressive action. Bond reform measures will appear on the November ballot as constitutional amendments representing the next front in his crime-fighting agenda. The expansion of task forces to other Texas cities is planned, building on the Houston model. In November 2025, Abbott declared groups like CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations, aligning with the Trump administration's hardline stance. Federal funding freezes for migrant aid organizations, including Catholic charities in the Rio Grande Valley, complement Texas's measures. The path forward for Texas remains uncertain. The state hosts approximately 1.7 to 2 million undocumented immigrants who contribute significantly to the economy, filling 40% of construction jobs and contributing $237,000 more in lifetime taxes than benefits received, according to some analyses. The challenge lies in addressing legitimate security concerns without devastating the economic engine that makes Texas prosperous. Whether Abbott's aggressive approach will ultimately succeed in making Texas safer, or whether critics are right that it's more theater than substance, will likely be determined by the crime statistics in the years ahead. For now, the warnings continue to mount, the debates rage on, and Texans wait to see whether their governor can deliver on his promises to secure the border and protect their communities. One thing is certain, the migrant crime debate in Texas is far from over. With 2025 marking the deadliest year for ICE custody since 2004, deportations at record levels, and economic consequences rippling through communities, the stakes couldn't be higher. Abbott faces warnings from all sides, from those who say he's done too little and those who fear he's done too much. How he navigates these competing pressures will define his legacy and shape Texas's future for years to come. The migrant crime crisis in Texas represents one of the most contentious and consequential policy challenges facing the state. Governor Greg Abbott stands at the center of this storm, facing warnings and criticism from across the political spectrum. From conservatives who accuse him of not doing enough to progressives who argue his policies are too harsh and counterproductive, Abbott must chart a course through treacherous political waters. The statistics tell a complex story, one where raw numbers of crimes committed by illegal immigrants appear alarming. but per capita rates suggest immigrants are actually less likely to commit crimes than native-born citizens. This tension between perception and reality drives much of the political debate. What cannot be denied is the human cost on all sides. The victims of crimes that could have been prevented, the families separated by enforcement actions, the communities strained by the influx and subsequent crackdowns, and the migrants themselves, many fleeing violence and poverty only to find new dangers in their pursuit of the American dream. Outro. Do you believe state leaders are doing enough to protect communities, or has the crisis already gone too far? Share your thoughts in the comments.